So you might remember not too long ago, this massive ice-covered island was suddenly all over the news. And not for the usual reasons, like climate change or melting glaciers. Nope. This time it was because of a pretty wild offer from the United States to just buy it. An offer that took this remote Arctic territory and threw it right into the middle of a geopolitical firestorm. But, well, Greenland's response wasn't exactly what Washington was hoping for. The answer from both Greenland and Denmark was swift, and it was crystal clear. This quote from Greenland's foreign minister at the time really says it all, doesn't it? It wasn't just a simple no. It was a powerful declaration of sovereignty, of a national identity. Greenland was basically telling the world, hey, we're a player in this game, not just a piece of property to be traded. And that really gets to the heart of it, right? Why all this sudden interest? What is it about this sparsely populated island that has both Washington and Beijing paying such close attention? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack here. Okay, so to really get what's happening with Greenland today, you have to understand its ultimate goal. It's a dream that's been in the works for generations, full, total national independence. And this isn't just about politics, It's about a nation trying to carve out its own destiny. Now, this timeline is super interesting because it shows this slow but really steady march towards sovereignty. I mean, look at it. From a Danish colony way back in the 1700s to becoming part of Denmark, then getting home rule, and finally establishing self-government in 2009. Every single one of these steps was a deliberate push for more control, away from its colonial past. And here's the crucial part. This dream of independence, it's not just some fuzzy political idea. It is a legally recognized right. That 2009 Self-Government Act was a game changer because it officially gives Greenland a path to one day hold a referendum and, if the people choose, become its own sovereign nation. But, and this is a huge but, there is a massive roadblock standing between that dream and reality. And like a lot of things in geopolitics, it all boils down to money. First, let's just wrap our heads around the scale here. The entire island, which, by the way, is 50 times bigger than Denmark, has a population smaller than your average mid-sized town. Right away, you can see how that creates a pretty staggering economic challenge. And this number, this is the core of the problem. Every single year, Greenland gets a block grant from Denmark worth about $700 million. It's the financial lifeline that pretty much keeps the country up and running. And if you want to see just how dependent they are, look at this. That Danish grant pays for more than half, 54%, of Greenland's entire public budget. We're talking schools, healthcare, roads, the whole shebang. So real independence means somehow, some way, finding a way to replace all that cash. But wait, it gets even more complicated. The reliance on Denmark is just one piece of the puzzle. Greenland's own economy is almost entirely built on a single industry, fishing. And as you can see here, that one industry is super dependent on one single market. In 2023, over half of all their fish exports went to China. That creates a whole other layer of economic vulnerability. So what's the plan? How does Greenland break free from all this dependency? Well, they're hoping the answer is buried deep beneath all that ice. They're basically betting their entire future on a huge, high-stakes gamble, their natural resources. Just take a look at this. The potential is absolutely staggering. Greenland is sitting on these massive, mostly untouched deposits of the exact minerals the world is desperate for. Things for green tech, for high-end manufacturing. We're talking rare earths, nickel, graphite. Developing these resources could be the golden ticket, the thing that finally gives Greenland the economic freedom it needs to become independent. But here's the dangerous flip side to that economic gamble. By putting its resources on the table, Greenland has accidentally walked right into the middle of a global power struggle, a kind of new great game between the United States and China. So what does this China threat in Greenland actually look like? This slide breaks it down perfectly. From the U.S. perspective, it's often framed in very stark military terms. You hear talk about gunships and security challenges. But a lot of geopolitical analysis points to a different, maybe more subtle kind of threat. One of economic leverage, of market control, and this idea of downstream coercion. So what on earth is downstream risk? Okay, it's actually pretty simple. Greenland can dig up all the valuable minerals it wants, but once that raw ore is out of the ground, it has to be sent somewhere else to be processed into something usable. And here's the kicker, China currently processes something like 90% of the world's supply. This means Greenland's ticket to freedom could just end up making them dependent on Beijing instead of Copenhagen. And this isn't just a theory. Let's go back to the fish trade for a second. This chart shows a really dangerous imbalance. For Greenland, China is an absolutely vital market. But for China, Greenland's fish are a tiny, almost insignificant fraction of their total imports. That gives Beijing a huge amount of leverage. If they ever wanted to put political pressure on Greenland, they could just turn off that tap, crippling Greenland's main export, and barely even notice it themselves.
So where does that leave Greenland? Well, in an incredibly tricky spot. They're basically walking a geopolitical tightrope, and their entire future as a nation is hanging in the balance.
So, let's just boil it all down. Here's the core challenge. The goal? Total independence. The path to get there? Build a new economy based on mineral wealth. The risk? That very same path could trap Greenland right between the competing ambitions of the US and China, making them a pawn in their game. And that brings us to the final critical question. Greenland is playing an incredibly high-stakes game. Its leaders have to somehow play these superpowers off each other to build their economy without getting crushed in the process. Can they pull it off? Will Greenland actually forge its own independent destiny, or will it just end up swapping one form of dependency for another? That really is the question.